right, let's make a formal introduction for our listener. Good afternoon, Richard. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the studios in Fairfax City. We're very humble and grateful that Richard Steven Sinclair accepted our invitation to the show. Richard, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be welcomed. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And usually I ask every interview the same question. You know, the last 2 years have been crazy with the COVID, the pandemic. Some people got vaccinated, some people don't. Some people believe on it. Some people think it's a conspiracy. Whatever it is, tell me how COVID affected you, your family, your sanity. How you holding up, man?
Yeah, my friends, the rest of the planet Earth, all a bit, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. COVID started. First time I heard about it was early, beginning of February, a couple of years ago, and it appeared in Milan, and so Italy got it really bad, okay? My wife, Heather, was a state registered nurse, and when she heard the news, she said, this isn't going to go away because it's a virus, okay? It takes a lot to sort that out. Everybody's saying blah, 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 DDD. Everybody. Down south, I live in Puglia, it's in South Italy, and they got it together more or less straight away, where all the restrictions suddenly happened with everybody moaning about it. Well, no, we have to do that, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly it was masks on, okay? A good idea if you got like what I consider germ warfare, right? Which still exists now, you know. Tiptoe through the batshit? I don't think so. I think this was very well organized. What have we got at the moment? A war, okay? What have we had every day of our lives? Every day of my life since the Second World War, a war going on around planet Earth. So let's get real about all this stuff, right? You know, COVID, okay, doddle-dee. So we all stop worrying about ourselves. What about all the people that are dying? All the children in Africa and all the rest of it, right? And now they're not getting food because, you know, I thought World War II was to actually sort how many million people died. So everybody could have their own language and their own way of being rather than being run by, you know, a bunch of Nazis and all the rest of the shit, which is exactly what's happening now. It's all pretending to be, oh, it's only about capitalism. Well, yes, of course it is. We've all signed into that, haven't we? For God's sake, right from birth. Oh, here we go. I've got Alex Maguire, coming off of my iPhone. By the way, just let everybody know that I only have an iPhone 11, which I don't quite know how to use. I live deep in the country. I collect my water from the sky because I live in a building called a Truly. I moved here for very good reasons, right? Into the country, Italy in the south. It's one of the most magic places for me in Europe to live. The food here is absolutely spectacular in the south. It's still real, okay? And you don't have to go to supermarkets and buy it in plastic bags, you know, and stick it in a microwave or whatever that shit is, you know, like we all, most of the planet live. I mean, that's the problem with the planet Earth. It is only human beings that make hell in paradise. And if you don't realize that you're in paradise, what the fuck are you doing here anyway, right?
Yeah. No, I'm very lucky myself.
Themselves and blaming it on someone else. COVID. This was a question about COVID. So straight away we were made legally to wear masks. Okay, you couldn't do a lot of things here, and my wife had a terrible accident during this COVID period, and all the hospitals became panic-stricken and completely stupid through the whole of the world, okay? Especially here in Italy. It was really a very difficult service to use. You know, partners couldn't go into a hospital together, even though they'd been tested and they didn't have COVID and masks on. You weren't allowed to go in and see your wife being treated. It's like the same in funerals and all the rest of it. I mean, you know, that's why the Prime Minister Johnson in whatever his first name twiddly is, fantastic comedian, but useless as a politician, fantastic comedian, very funny actually. And now all the politics in the world are, you know, I mean, the juxtaposition. This war now that's happening on our doorstep and not yours, which is really being overseen by the greatest power on planet Earth, you know, physically, which is the country where you live, okay, is managing to sort of contain it a bit. But I mean, I'm in touch with people in Moscow, and they're having a terrible time, right? Especially the musicians and all the rest of it. And now in Europe, all the musicians having a bad time. And in Italy now, what the hell is going on? There's no money for arts and the most magic things on planet Earth. It's all about money, isn't it? And so, cut a short story as long as possible. Let's talk about music, because it's only human beings make hell on planet Earth. You know?
That's right. So
COVID exists and it will go on forever. It's a design that is supposed to mutate, and God knows what it hasn't done to us mentally, let alone physically, right?
Yes,
Everybody's depression, partnerships have split up, you know, especially here in Europe. I mean, all over. That's why I joined Facebook, just to hear real news, like talking to you. My first questions to you when we weren't online is, how are you then? And that's your question to me. How are we? We're in a state, all of us at the moment, and Europe is at war, which your country is overseeing as well as, and is bringing Europe together, which it's never been together, even as a Euro deal. Everybody's got the same colour money. Who the hell is organising that? You know, nothing relates to where you actually stand anymore. It's called globalism or something ridiculous, right?
No, I know what you mean.
Everybody's doing the same thing, blaming it on someone else. It's your money that pays taxes that means that we can shoot each other, okay? It's as simple as that. There's no other realistic deal of it. To make sure that you remain in the capitalistic system, you go for 50, 55 years of your life and you work every day, to and fro, to. That's called normality, okay? Luckily, I'm at 74 now and managed to escape it in 1990, okay? So I'm not retired. I don't get a pension anywhere, you know, whatever. It's like, I think, you know, everybody's blaming this problem on someone else. It's a major problem at the moment as far as food goes. And don't worry about climate change. The Earth will see you off. Right? You know, the moon's moving away from the planet Earth, apparently, 1 inch a year. You know, that's creating a bit of a wobble on planet Earth, you know. And now we got all the volcanoes, which we're just now hearing. We've always had that. It's just now this global news is like, wow, all the stories they tell. Lyrics from Pip Pye are rather good. One of the songs that no one will know. Pip was the drummer of Hatfield in the North and many other things. Chicken Shack in the early days. You know, anyway, you look back through Pip's history, Hatfield in the North. He wrote some very beautiful rock tunes, one of the most amazing lyric writers in Canterbury. And one of the tunes goes, most of the true things I'm about to tell are lies. I won't bother bending ears when I don't believe my eyes. And so it goes on, and so it goes on, you know.
All right, very good. Where are you? Let's go back to your beginning, Richard. Were you born like in a musical family? How old were you when you
began taking piano lesson or guitar lesson?
Yeah.
I was born into a musical family, also a very fine craftsman. I was born in Canterbury at the address 9 Downs Road, as far out as Canterbury as my dad could make it. He came from a rather interesting background when his grandfather was one of the great photographers that could make a portrait picture of you 2 for. Okay, and he took on a business, I think, from one of his brothers or one of the grandfather's my great-grandfather, his father's brother. I mean, a musical family, yes. My grandfather at the turn of the century, 1900, was singing in Canterbury on a Sunday. Now here you have the Canterbury is the place of the Cathedral of the Church of England, okay? The Archbishop of Canterbury oversees that, a bit like the Pope in Rome. But it's a bit more open, the Christian, you know, the Anglican Church or whatever you call it, and where it's a bit more tied down here. in Italy where I live. But yes, was I born into a music family? My father had a voice like mine now. As he talked, it sounded like music. Okay, he was an entertainer in the evening. He played double bass, drums, singing saw, banjos, four-string guitars, swanee whistle, everything to do with entertaining. Far more entertaining than his father, who was just a coster, which is one of the guys that sings with, is the Pearly Queen, and his wife was the Pearly Queen, Gertrude Sinclair. I think my cousin in Japan, who used to play in Caravan 2 and known as the Canterbury scene, he has a poster of Grandad Sinclair and Granny Sinclair, whose names were Dick Sinclair and Gertrude Sinclair. He was the first Richard that I came across. Right? I kept my name as Rich rather than Dick. Okay, my father's name was Dick. They were both really singers, and so yes, the family was very musical, very entertaining, loved by many. My father had a voice with an English accent like Nat King Cole. He sang all the Frank Sinatra tunes, all the popular standards from the radio from, I suppose, 1930 right the way through to 86 when he died. He was still entertaining in 86. And yeah, he had a dinner dance band. He had his own band during just before the war period in Canterbury. He had a 5-piece, like a dance band.
Yeah, gotcha. What kind of music were you listening to when you were, I don't know, 14, 15 years old?
Well, my dad, really, we had the radio on. Okay, yeah. So all the way through, I've always listened to pop music rather than jazz music. And the only jazz, like we'd listen to all the the popular pop musicians that played jazz too in England all the way through. Especially, my sister was 9 years older than me, and so she'd listen to the popular music of her time too, which is more like skiffle and they'd be dancing on wooden floors, and all that stuff. And then my generation, I was one of the baby boomers. I was born after the war. I was born in 1948.
Yeah.
June the 6th. Okay, 1948. If anybody wants to calculate my deal, astrologically, and no, I had a great early beginnings because, like, the sun really shone out of every orifice. I was the younger son, and my sister looked after me a lot. We used to go. I remember rushing up the road where I used to live in 9 Downs Road, Canterbury, and I'd be on roller skates and dragged along. She was also a singer, used to win all the competitions with my father. Really? They used to sing together and all that. No, the family was pretty musical, yeah. I'm pretty arty as well, but always painting, drawing and sewing and knitting and embroidering. And, I can remember going in the first caravan trips and I'd be embroidering my jeans, as we were up the road, all racing each other, with Genesis. And yes, I used to like all the embroidery and, artwork and stuff. Always hands-on. Never read a book in my life apart from, Macrobiotic book by George Ossawa or Lord of the Rings, and not interested in the intellectual side of life at all. I'd rather make my own films and write my own books,
Feel free to elaborate from the people that they don't know the Canterbury scene and
the Canterbury scene, yes.
That's a magical place, man. Feel free to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, it started straight away for me because the real Canterbury scene were the people that actually lived there and entertained there. There were some great musicians and young people working. My father was a musician in the evening, and during the daytime, he was a workshop foreman in a building firm in Canterbury. And he was very, very skillful with wood and things, and especially when, for the evening, he'd repair all his own instruments, and he was able to do all that stuff. I think as a young man, as a young boy, he built his own banjo, and so he sort of moved away from the style of family that he was born into, which was pretty middle class and earning money. My grandfather, in fact, had one of the biggest public houses in Canterbury, and it was where you could play music, and it's where you could eat well and entertainment stuff. So my whole family were always been entertainers or to do with craft work and building houses and stuff. Me too. I went, I went to a secondary modern school, the Archbishop School of Canterbury. The Canterbury scene it started from the Wilde Flowers. And the Wilde Flowers were really the Hopper brothers, Hugh Hopper and Brian Hopper. They were both playing instruments and things. Their parents used to go and see my father sing at the dinner dance stuff. So at the age of 15, Mr. and Mrs. Hopper said to my father, hey, my son's trying to start a band, which I think they'd already half done. And my father said, oh, I've just bought my son a guitar, a Hofner very thin, with a Bigsby unit on it, and he had an amp for me to play, which was a 1950s True Voice, Selma True Voice PA system, which I took up to the Hopper Brothers house, Mr. and Mrs. Hopper, in a place called Tanglewood, Giles Lane, just outside Canterbury. And we tried it out, and I was playing Chuck Berry music and other American music, nothing to do with Canterbury music or the Beatles, which I was into. I really enjoyed playing the Beatles at school. Man, the first band I was in the Archbishop School was called the Pulsators, and I think I was 13 then. And I had a electric white Hoyer guitar with a Diamond pickup, and we used to play songs like there be bells on a hill, but I never heard them ringing. No, I never heard them at all. With all our boy voices, just the three of us. And then I was introduced to Wilde Flowers, which wasn't Wilde Flowers then, it was just a Hopper band.
Yeah.
And we played Chuck Berry music like Sitting Over. Whoa, whoa, I'm almost grown, yeah, and I'm doing right at school. We did all that stuff, right? And then Robert Wyatt, the drummer, eventually became known in the Soft Machine, and now he's a BBC favourite. He's Robert Wyatt, the most outstanding writer in the Canterbury scene, many albums and things that he's made. And and so you had the Wilde Flowers started when Kevin Ayres joined. Now, this is a man that used to live near Herne Bay. I think his parents were also like Robert's, to do with the radio, BBC programmes and things like that. So it was a very good introduction to what became the Canterbury scene, was really from Robert and Kevin, Mike Ratledge, who actually lived in Canterbury. They all went, most of the boys in the Canterbury scene, including my cousin and the Hopper boys, Hugh and Brian, they all went, and also Robert Wyatt, they went to a Canterbury school called the Simon Langton School. Also my father, went to the Simon Langton, and his brother Frank, who was my cousin's father, Frank Sinclair, David Sinclair, and he was a member of Caravan. So what happened was everybody, when it's Kevin that decided the name of the band Wilde Flowers, comes from Oscar Wilde. And Wilde Flowers played for about 4 years. I was in it 2 years, and I escaped because I really didn't like listening to people singing like they were from America. I'm a choir boy from Canterbury, so hearing tunes like I forget what his name is now, but I never heard any of these tunes. I'd only heard Beatles tunes and the popular pop standards on. Never listened to jazz. Never heard any jazz. I came later when I got to meet Pye Hastings, but it's like Pye from Caravan who started that. So I had 2 years in, and the music was like sitting over here on Parchment Farm, doo-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo, and it sounded a bit like that, singing to me as well. But I was used to like Paul McCartney's singing, couldn't stand the Rolling Stones. My father used to say, they sound like someone delivering the coal.
And then in 68, you became a founding member of Caravan, right?
Yeah, I was in the Wild Flowers. I went to art school then, so I used to draw. Robert was in Canterbury then. He used to be a model at the Canterbury Art School, so I used to have to draw him in his underpants. Okay, and then eventually, I did 4 years of industrial design as a silversmith because I knew all about wood already because my father was the antique restorer for the Archbishop and the Church of England, you know, the Canterbury Cathedral and all that. He did all the restoration work on the furniture that's usually in the Red Dean or the Archbishop's Palace. So, you know, we're quite well linked to the Church of England, which is really, for me, the Canterbury scene. Okay. Anyway, eventually I was asked by Pye. Dave Sinclair had been in the Wild Flowers, and also Richard Coughlan, who was eventually the drummer with, they joined with Pye to make a band. And Pye came to me and said, would I like to join a band? It wasn't called Caravan then, and join your cousin and Richard Coughlan and come and play guitar. Okay, so I said, yeah, I'd like to do that because I'm a bit fed up with all this college deal and having to go again to London for another 3 years to go to college. And so we joined together, and Pye, David and I worked on a Kentish town's bypass, a main motorway, for I think it was about maybe 3 months, maybe not that long. Anyway, to earn enough money so we could all be together and find a place to start a band, which we did. David Sinclair and Pye Hastings and I worked on the Seven Oaks bypass. I had the best job because I was pretty skillful at woodwork. And so I was working up in the air, you know, quite a long way up, doing the shuttering for the parabolic arches for bridges in Seven Oaks, and being nailed on the scaffolding in the rain, you know, and suddenly realized you couldn't get away, you know, in your Mac because your Mac had been nailed up there. You know. Anyway, eventually after a few months, we rented a place in a town called Whitstable, which is about 6 miles outside Canterbury, and we organised music for 6 months there. Only played 8 concerts and were noticed, and Pye went round to try and get a record deal because the Soft Machine were already up and running. Okay, they came from the Wild Flowers too. That was Caravan. That was Kevin Ayres, Robert Wyatt, and they decided to make a band with what became Gong, which is David Allen.
Yeah.
And they made a band with Mike Ratledge, and it became Soft Machine. Unfortunately, it went down to south of France, played at a festival in Cannes, and David Allen, who'd come from Australia, then when they came back to go into England, he couldn't get back into England, so he had to stay in France. So he formed a band called Gong.
Yeah.
And Soft Machine started as Mike Ratledge from Canterbury, Kevin Ayres from Herne Bay near Canterbury, and Robert Wyatt from Lyddon, I'm not sure whether it's Lyddon or Lyd, near Canterbury, okay? And they started the Soft Machine, and they were the first ones to get an album up and running. First album is still my favourite, actually, the Soft Machine album, with Kevin playing bass. He was a great bass player, Kevin, in the early days. And then soon after that, the Wild Flowers continued with Pye Hastings and Richard Coughlan and Dave Sinclair and another bass player called Lawrence. And eventually that stopped. And when it stopped, they came to me. I'd been at college, and they said, Richard, would I like to join a band? Which I did. And we worked for 6 months, eventually called it Caravan. And Pye got a record deal with Verve, Warner Brothers. And we made our first album, name of the band Caravan. Okay,
correct. You remember tracks like Golf Girl and Winter Wine?
I came later. We made the Caravan album for Verve, and then we changed labels. We were organised by a manager called Terry King of Kingdom Records, and he was our manager and agent, and he organised a thing with Hugh Mendel, who was the the chief of Decca then in England, and we signed to Decca, signed all our royalties away at the age of 20 or 19, and made another album called If I Could Do It All Over Again, I'd Do It Over You. And then in 1979, we made an album called Land of Grey and Pink for Decca. And Winter Wine, Golf Girl, and Land of Grey and Pink, the title track, were written by me, and the lyrics too. But we all decided that we'd share the royalties. In the early days, we kept us together. It's rather good. In fact, there weren't any royalties to come because we'd signed them away. Okay. We only get paid a very small amount for that. It became a bit iconic, mainly, I think, because of the beautiful album cover that was designed by a 14-year-old girl at an art school, that was really the idea of Terry King, our management, said, well, we need a cover, and she did this beautiful drawing of the Land of Grey and Pink, of my lyrics. Okay, my lyrics were really the sky. The Land of Grey and Pink is the sky, rather what they call whimsical lyrics, but they seem to be, every song I've written seems to relate to now. Okay.
You remember some of the lyrics? You remember some of the lyrics?
Remember them. I had to sing them with so many people that like to play them and enjoy to sing. In the land of grey and pink, where only Boy Scouts stop to think, they'll be coming back again, those nasty grumbly gribblies, and they're climbing down your chimney. Yes, they're trying to get in. Come to take your money, isn't it a sin? They're so thin. There's black buckets in the sky. Don't leave your dad in the rain. Cigarettes burn bright tonight. They'll all get washed down the drain. So we sail away for just one day to the land where the punkweed grows. You won't need any money, just fingers and your toes. And in the dark, our boat will park in the land of warm and green, and pick our fill of punkweed and smoke it till we bleed. That's all you need.
Man, amazing, man.
Amazing. And then they go on again, and there it goes on and on again. I mean, it was a time when the baby boomers were having fun. We'd gone through the psychedelic era, and it was still a bit psychedelic. It had come from the hippie era, and before then in the 50s, beatniks, okay, when it was a bit more jazzy and a bit more, big woolly jumpers. The hair was long then. When I joined Hugh Hopper and Brian Hopper, they already had long hair, okay? I had this quiff that looked like one of the English stars, Billy J. Kramer. Billy J. Kramer and The Secret or something. Yeah. I had a duck's arse on the back and a big plume of hair, a bit like my hat. I don't take my hat off because all I've got now is a bald head, which I call the solar panel for sex,
So you end up, you stay for the Caravan for like those 3 years, and then you end up leaving Caravan?
Yeah, I think it's a bit longer. Yeah, no.
Why, if you don't mind asking?
Why what?
Leaving Caravan to form.
Why did I leave Caravan?
The Hatfield on the North.
I think it was a time to change. I mean, I'm a Gemini and I like to keep moving on. I don't want to keep playing the same style or thinking or the same level of musical ability. Okay, I like to move to other levels, not they're higher or lower. I like to be more eventful, and already I was in touch with Robert, okay, who lived in South London, and I'd already great songwriters, all the people that I've ever written with, okay, including Pye. The only reason why I wrote songs is because of Pye, okay. He had an amazing musical family deal where his brother was the most amazing flute player in England by far. Fantastic man, okay. And saxophone player for the BBC. He was the Stan Getz, of England for the BBC Orchestra, and he's a wonderful man, a wonderful player, wonderful entertainer on flute and sax. Fantastic, you know, gave Caravan a lot of credibility, that. And really, I've always been heading towards that ability to play your instrument at a very complete, you know, finding out new things every day. Whereas Caravan had run its deal for me, okay? Pye's a great songwriter, and I think the album he made, what happened was we made another album called Waterloo Lily, but my cousin left right after the making of Land of Grey and Pink and joined Robert Wyatt to make a song album. It was in Robert's mind, and also David's, and they made the first Matching Mole album, which is a play on Machine Mole, you know, soft machine in French.
Yeah.
Machine Mole, okay, machine soft. And yeah, I mean, he made some, I mean, it was his songs and Robert's lyric writing was fantastic. I mean, Robert's a fantastic songwriter, okay? A lot of people call him a Jesus. He's just the magic man on that. And he writes very amusing lyrics. It's always a play on the deal of politics, or how the world is, or what a terrible state is it. For me, it's always a bit sad. I like the jolly ones, me, you know. Like ones like he has a song called Soup Song, you know.
You remember
which is,
do you remember song like Share It, Let's Eat? And then
they're the tunes
halfway
I wrote.
between
Yes,
heaven and earth.
they're all my songs you're talking about now.
Halfway between heaven and earth, yeah.
I mean, I've got a guitar, I can sing you, but I can sing you the melody if you like. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I've got a guitar to play some new music, but what was I going to say? So you just said Share It. Yeah, that's Pip Pyle's lyrics to one of my tunes. So before his lyrics, it would have sounded like do da ba ba dee bo ba ba dee ba ba dee dee ba bo ba da biddly doo doo, and it's all written around like a blues thing. Gang doo gang doo doo gang doo gang. Okay, lyrics are, and it's always a joke from Pip, right? Lyrics are: tadpoles keep screaming in my ears. Hey there, Rotters Club, explain the meaning of this song and share it. Ain't no way of understanding what's been going on. I lost track yesterday, but now I found out that it's generosity that turns me on. Let's keep it that way. Why not help yourself to me? I'll help myself to you and all your friends. We can spread it around. So if you can share it, then come on, let's share it. Let's get on with it, 'cause we're wasting our time. Please do not take it seriously, really. What a joke. The only thing to do is grin and bear it. Do you want the rest of the lyrics?
That's amazing. How can you remember
really
stuff,
good
man?
songwriter, because he's got the punctuation.
Yeah.
He had the most amazing. He was the most amazing. I mean, people couldn't call him jazz or rock. He was like in between the two. It was the most amazing, interesting rock drummer. And then, you know, eventually after, I mean, you were talking about the story of Caravan. It came to, my cousin had left, and the keyboard player that I knew that could make it an interesting situation where I could invite other musicians into it that came from London, okay, is where I was heading anyway, right? I wanted to play with musicians that played 24 hours a day. And Caravan wasn't playing 24 hours a day. When we started, they were. We lived in a place in Whitstable. We played 24 hours a day, you know, drove the neighbors mad in the terrace at Caravan, right? It's like we had the council constantly coming round to check the volume, you know. Obviously we played quiet. That was a Caravan. And then, you know, my cousin, Dave Sinclair, he left the band, okay, and formed the band with Robert Wyatt called Matching Mole, Robert's band. And so we needed a keyboard player. And I was the only one that knew keyboard players, which was the one in London, the Miller Brothers, you know, which Steve Miller was the leader of a band called Steve Miller's Delivery, which eventually became Carol Grimes' Delivery, which has got a bit of Canterbury fame to it. Carol's still alive. She lives down in East Kent. She's a little bit older than me. She's still singing, you know. It's a nice album to listen to if everybody hasn't heard of all the Canterbury scene. It's a blues album, and it's called Carol Grimes' Delivery. It's got a great bass player on it, Roy Babington, who eventually became the jazz bass player in Soft Machine. So it's all very linked, the Canterbury scene. There's a lot of really good players, right? Hatfield the North started when I'd left. I had to leave. I wanted to move to London to go and play with Pit Pyle, okay, who'd been playing with Gong, another of the Canterbury affiliated bands, David Allen's band. So it's all very, very close musician friends that have passed through Canterbury at some time, or had girlfriends from Canterbury, or they linked Canterbury in some way with the music styles and the thinking of the music. I moved up. I left Caravan because after Waterloo Lily, which was great fun, I played with the London guys. Phil Miller played on Waterloo Lily, the guitarist that eventually organised his own band called In Cahoots. But before then, we formed Hatfield the North with Pit Pyle and his Phil Miller's brother Miller, who'd been the keyboard player in Caravan. Trouble is, the two brothers didn't get on well. Phil wanted to write the music out, make it much more organised, whereas Steve was more of a free player, blues player and jazz. Played with a very great entertainer called Lowell Coxwell saxophone, who's known for his own deal. They both left the planet now. Steve left the planet in early days, cancer, and also Lowell left the planet. And so Hatfield formed when Steve, which is Phil Miller's brother, decided not to be in the band, and Phil said, yeah, better. And so I asked my cousin Dave Sinclair to join Hatfield the North, because I thought this is good. He'd been in a band with Phil Miller and Robert Wyatt, which was called Matching Mole, and he was the keyboard player for Matching Mole, okay? Right. And Dave decided after a short while, once we got Richard Branston interested in, invited him into a millionaire's farmhouse, okay? We had a party there, which was one of Robert Wyatt's wife's friend Pam as well, was one of their friends, okay? And so Hatfield the North went down to play some music and rehearse and have a party. This was in 1970, end of 72, 3. And we invited Richard Branston down to see us play. That's when my cousin Dave Sinclair was in the band. And he was interested because Caravan were quite an interesting unit then, and achieved quite a lot of fame, okay? And so he was persuaded to start thinking about having us on his label, okay?
Wow.
Yeah, that's how it happened. And trouble is, Dave Sinclair didn't want to stay in Hatfield the North. It wasn't his type of music. He really wanted to make power ballads and more ballady type music, which is why he joined Robert, because Robert's a bit more all-encasing with his spirit for popular music. It's not just middle of the road. It's like all over the place, you know. It's a really good political statement sometimes and all that, you know. He wrote the lyrics to Oh Caroline, okay? David's on piano and I may play on the drums. We'll try to make the music work. We'll try to have some fun. And it's when he had a girlfriend called Caroline Coon. Caroline, okay? And she didn't want to keep the relationship going. She was a very famous person in London that had her own bio food deal, Caroline Coon, you know. So it's funny stories. It's quite elaborate, but
give me one minute. I need to put my recharger. I'll be right back. Give me 1 minute.
Okay. Well, me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Get you.
I've got you very. You're very quiet. Is it possible I can hear you louder?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
I can. Oh, it's just me. I'll just go turn it up a bit. Yeah. Good.
All right. You were. This is play some music.
You do. Need some lyrics.
Very good, man.
Excuse me?
Very good.
It's just like a new tune starting, you know.
Unbelievable. Amazing.
Probably.
Very good.
You know, Cheers. Thank you. Happy days, everybody. I got it.
All right.
I'm working all the time. I've been working all day today on. I have a lot of young musicians come here that have day jobs, okay, but they make albums, CDs, and I always get asked to do bass parts and singing parts and write parts of their music, and it helps them get noticed a bit because some of them are very good, very nice music. Also, I get some I've just been working on some music from a lady in England who works for Michael Westbrook. Okay, Mike Westbrook. He's one of the #1 jazz entertainers of interesting music for radio in England, right? And she's a very good writer.
Wow, good for you.
Very love. She has a girly band. She has 5 girls in her band, and I've been talking to her during COVID because I noticed that she's such a very fine writer and a nice singer too. Very nice, and it's an all-girl band. Anyway, I've been asked to do for one of her songs called "Irony." It's a very nice song, very good. And she's made a whole album.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that I can join her. Yeah, I'm hoping she's going to come to Italy too, so we can do some writing together because she's a very fun person and a very, very fine writer of lyrics. And so I'm blessed.
Yeah.
You know,
how
I've
far
always
do you
worked with
live?
lots of good songwriters.
Yeah. How far do you live from Rome or Milan?
I'm right down south. It's called. I live on the ankle of the heel of the boot. It's called Martina Franca. I'm inland, sort of not central, because it's in the province of Puglia.
Yeah.
And Puglia is quite a big, long area. It's like the whole of the heel, you know, the leg and the heel going down, and then you've got it spreads out into Calabria. And it's a very nice place to live down south. Yes, how far am I from Rome?
Or
Not
Milan?
that far. I mean, you can fly it in an hour, or you can drive it in 2 hours, 4 hours plus, you know.
Yeah. Do you drive there in Italy or no? Do you drive?
I've just had my license taken away from me because it's 3 years out of date. Okay, so and I just spent a morning with the marshal of the Carabinieri, when all we did was really look at me on the iPhone, you know, and sort of they know about me. I think one of the Carabinieri is the bass player down here in the south, you know, in Martina Franca, and they're constantly coming to keep me in line, you know, saying, "You Richard Sinclair, a bass player." He's a bass player too, and I think his father lives in a very famous town nearby where I lived, in Martina Franca. It's very famous for its hold truly. I mean, I live in a building that's made of stone. That can there be anything up to? Mine's 300 years old. Look, I can show you. It's fantastic. Wow. And above here, they're cones. Okay, you can actually hear it in the acoustics. Yeah. These big stone arches, okay?
Yeah.
And outside there's 4 cones. And so El Brabello is a whole town of these buildings. And I think this Carabinieri is, you know, young man who plays bass. I've not heard him play yet. I've invited him to come in. You know? I mean, the police force, you know, are pretty good here, actually. They do a really good job because it's quite a heavy place at the end of Italy. There's a lot of people now, you know, escaping, especially Africa and goodness knows where else, you know. And so Italy's coping very well with it, indeed, actually, you know, rescuing people from the sea and all that sort of stuff. It's not a well-known stuff worldwide, but it's a very big problem in Africa now with all the wars. Goodness knows what goes on, all to do with who's got the money and running the land, you know. So a lot of people are without food at the moment, which, you know,
yeah, it's very difficult,
and have been a long time, not just this period, okay. And all the food is in either America or it's in Russia or it's in large areas in China, which, you know, it's like there is food growing, and it is possible to grow food everywhere on planet Earth. It's only us humans that don't know how to do it, right?
Absolutely. In '74, you participated in Rock Bottom, which is the second album by
Yeah,
former Super
Robert
Program.
Wyatt's.
Feel free to
Yeah,
elaborate that. I
Robert
think it was,
Wyatt's album. There's a Robert Wyatt. That was his first one for Virgin Records. Richard Branston. Yeah.
and that was produced
I,
by Nick Mason, right? From
Nick Mason did the
Nick,
controlling, producing. Is a very good
wow.
friend of Robert's.
Right.
They all really admire Robert because he's such a great songwriter and entertainer. Unfortunately, when he was in Soft Machine at a certain time, and then he made his own band. He was sort of left Soft Machine because it wasn't really. He wasn't welcome in his own band, basically. Like most of us singers, you know, the jazzers like to be jazz and the singers like to be entertainers, you know. Never the train to meet. So he made first album of Matching Mole, and then his with my cousin in it. And then what are we talking about? Sorry, which then he made
we're talking about the Rock Bottom, right? How that was
after
produced
he'd made the Matching Mole albums. He
Yeah.
decided to make Rock Bottom, and a lot of the words on there are to do with his music and Matching Mole as well. And he had a terrible accident. Okay, he fell out of a window. He was wrongly going down a drain pipe out of a window from a party situation, and the drain pipe ran out, I think 3 stories above the ground, and so he dropped to the ground, broke his ankles and his back low down, and so he hasn't got the use of his legs anymore, so he couldn't be a drummer anymore, and he spent many months in a hospital in London recovering. And during that period of time he composed a lot of music, you know, to his actual rhythm of his breath, like songs like no net not no not net no net foldy baloney. Elfie be Elfie is his wife and his partner in life. Elfie be my larder. With Elfie going on the album, I'm not your larder.
Do you remember
fantastic
memories?
Work for, and I had a lovely time. Everybody did. We didn't play at the same time. We all went and did our parts.
Yeah.
Hugh Hopper was the bass part for 3 songs, and I played on 3 songs. Robert phoned us both up and said, "Will we play bass on his album?" And then I went to his house in South London and found out what I got to play, and then I was invited to go to the studio. Spent a couple of days in the studio with Nick Mason and Robert. Deciding, and just played the music to the backing tracks. Okay,
yeah.
With Nick Mason always about, a great producer, a great engineer, always there on the case, right? Fantastic man, very good in the studio. Only problem is he didn't mix my bass up loud enough, right? I can hear it. A lot of the people go, "Oh, great bass part." It's like, I want to hear my bass part louder. So I did a really good one. You know, there was one track going, it's all in 7s. You know, it goes, and this great sort of orchestra of horns and stuff, you know, quite known players. And then it gets halfway through and it just goes backwards. And I'm the only one that has to play forwards through it. So it's really good fun, you know. Drums are going backwards, or the horns are going backwards, the singing part's going backwards. Me, I'm going forward on this amazing riff. It was really, you know, and so I could really be my. Also, in the studio, Robert's an amazing person to work with because he lets you be you. Really? He's not a director, right? He just knows that you're a good listener and you have a good spirit, and he lets you put your spirit on his music. He's a genius at that, right? Very good. He's like the equivalent of Miles Davis is to the Canterbury scene. Okay? You know, and he got thrown out of his own band, which was ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, yeah, because his music is the most noted, you know. All music is. That's the trouble with jazzers. They don't like singers, when I think all musicians should sing what they play, you know. I mean, if you don't, how are you going to learn to play? I mean, everybody's tuning by light now. That's ridiculous. You tune to each other, okay? In harmonic, you know. Here we are. This is what we all play. This is what we're all listen to, all relate to this man's design, right? Pythagoras, okay?
Yeah.
Numbers, time, a lot, okay?
Yeah,
Who decided the world was round before him. He was the one, and also from South Italy. He was a Greek man that came from South Italy, lived below Naples, okay? And when the Greeks were coming, those were 500 years before Christ, was it, or something like that? 530 years before Christ. And this person, this guy called Paul Rodrigo, has said, this is a numerology handbook. Discover the secrets of achieving complete personal fulfillment. Okay, and this is what the deal is. Listen to this. This book has been written to provide you with a much greater self-awareness. It truly is a golden opportunity to voyage on a journey of self-discovery to a more positive and satisfying life. Yes, please. All I ask is that you study this subject with an open mind. Even skeptical doubters will then find more in numerology than they ever expected. Numbers can be used to understand the human psyche, to analyze personality, and to predict events. Numerology can make it possible for you to control your life more effectively. Just as the earliest great explorers did not understand how their compass did its job, you too must work in trust to learn that numerology can accurately chart your world and return you safely home. Oh, that's nice. Modern numerology has its roots in the esoteric doctrines of the Greek mathematician Pythagoras. Ranging far beyond geometry, he conceived the idea of the soul as immortal and passing in succession through many bodies. Not sure what he means by bodies. Pythagoras conceived of a soul in a system of musical spheres, where everything in the universe has been designed to fit harmoniously. He believed that everything in the world is vibrating according to a preordained I can't say it because I've got plastic teeth. Numerical rhythm, which we can learn to understand and use to great personal fulfillment. Well, it's like it's numbers 1 to 9. I mean, think of time, think of all the things we calculate, because he decided that the world is round, it proved it. Planets affect you every day like the moon does, okay? All the calculations, which have always gone back, I'm sure, millions of years. I'm sure there's been many civilizations that have got to the point which we'll be arriving at soon, and it's usually in timing with the Earth. You won't get rid of yourself, the Earth will do it for you, right? When there's no light, you die, and that's called stuff going into the atmosphere, like from volcanoes, okay? Or something hitting the Earth that creates this huge cloud. Then there is no life on planet Earth because there's no light. All our energy comes from the sun, nowhere else, okay? Everything on planet Earth is in fact free. Water comes from the sky, it's free, okay? Oxygen is here, providing you keep planting trees and not cutting them down, right? It's like plant fucking trees, like in 73. If everybody planted a tree in their life, we'd have a lot more oxygen on planet Earth, okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
Richard,
there's all this crap about global warming and all the rest of it. Plant some trees, Stop eating so much meat. Let a few things grow,
Absolutely.
Eat grains and vegetables for a bit, Collect some water when apparently it's illegal to do it now, It's like, it's free on planet Earth. So it's food. You only have to plant it. It's just everybody. And the only thing you have on planet Earth is time. And planet Earth is paradise. So you have time in paradise. It's your choice, okay?
Amen. I agree.
Yeah.
Hey, Richard.
And so again, all these people say, "Oh, I can't possibly talk to you now. I've got to eat. I've got to decide. I've got to do. I don't know what. I haven't got time." Well, that's your choice, isn't it? Of course, you've got time. You just choose not to use it in a certain way. Go to work all your life, 60 years. to and fro, to and fro, to and fro. Pay taxes, which means they can build bombs, and so we can shoot each other. Simple as that.
Yeah. Do you have any memory, any recollection of the 1969 Frank Zappa? I think it was a festival.
I do, yes. I know the very thing. I've just come up on the someone got a terrible recording of it, which of course it has to be. It was in a tent. I think it's called Amage. It was on the border of Holland and Belgium or something like that. Yeah. And very large tent. I think it was like a double, huge circus marquee with a great thing that went on. All these bands played. Many bands played, like the Nice and Soft Machine, and musicians like Archie Shepp and East of Eden and Caravan, and it went on and on and on. The Nice, and WD, and something else, and and Frank Zappa was there. The actual compere of it was a guy called Pierre Lattez, who was the actual John Peel of France. Okay, he was the #1, activist as far as being into the, entertaining side of music, the art side of it, just the popular job lot of it. And it was amazing seeing, because all the stage at one time was covered. It was a huge stage. I mean, I think it was nearly, I don't know how many thousand people. It must have been nearly 5,000 or 4,000. There was a lot of people. I think 5,000 people in this place, and I think Gong did their first gig there, which is a 15-piece band, and I've got actually a program of it somewhere, unless someone's nicked it. I'm sure that I've got the program of it, right? And it was an amazing event. I think it was a 2 or 3 day event, and Frank Zappa was there all the time, looking incredibly stoned, I'd say. And I thought he was always, he looked small there. He didn't look like a tall man at all. And he was always on the side of the stage, and he asked everybody, look, I would really like to play with you. Every band he asked. And most bands said yes. We said yes. And I think there's about nearly a 10-minute tape of us playing. We played the title track of our second album. It's a thing that goes, do you think you are? Which is like a 7-figure, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect for Frank Zappa to solo over one chord, okay? And of course, I mean, it was really creamed by David, because it's really an organ deal, and then Frank Zappa then was pretty angular to it. It's like someone sticking in starting a car with a handle, it's like, I think you'll find a tape of it. So it's actually a recording of it. I think I saw it on the Canterbury scene, in fact, on the Facebook.
Yeah, gotta be some.
And do I remember it? Yeah, fantastic day. I mean, there was band that was on two bands before us. Was a band called Germ, and I think it was like a 15 or 20-piece like acoustic instruments playing, and their thing was to play one note only. Okay. For nearly, they were supposed to be on for half an hour, and so it was like all very, modern type thinking for music, and so you got this sort of like, one notes, violin, it's all going on, right? It only lasted for about, I think it got a bit iffy after about 3 or 4 minutes, and it didn't last much longer than that before people started to pelt the stage with cans, right? They didn't want to listen to one note. And what was on stage then was all the Nices, the Nice group, with all their Marshall equipment, like, a big pile of it. And so and they had a roadie called Baz then, right? And he was turning it all around so the backside, wasn't getting damaged. And this band had to stop. Then I think there was another band on, and then we got to play. Oh, Nice played, and then we got to play after that. Yeah, it was good fun. I think there's tape recording of quite a few numbers that we played. Very bad recording because they would have been not from the desk.
Yeah,
it would have been at those early days, 1969. People had cassette recorders.
Yeah.
So it would have been on cassette. I mean, it can be cheered up a bit digitally, but I don't think digital cheers up anything, to be honest with you. It's like, I hate it. It's like, music in a box, a photograph of music. I hate it. I really like analog.
In 77, you end up joining Camel?
I was in Hatfield in the North. I made a few albums. That was a really good fun time. That, for me, was the most interesting band to play with. Really? Easily the best music for me. Very interesting, very discerning, quite a high level. And then, of course, no one really noticed that stuff then because everybody was still listening to that as they do now. The pop music is quite simplistic, isn't it? Some great singers, and some great writers and songs, and but really quite simple stuff. Easy listening, which is why the money is, okay.
Unfortunately,
so I always tried to make Hatfield easily listening. I'm the T-boy that makes the singing T-boy in the band.
Yeah, so let's talk about Camel. What do you remember about?
I was up. Well, I'd left Hatfield in the North. I'd gone abroad. I went abroad on the expenses of Richard Branston because I said, look, I just don't have any money. I remember going in, taking my daughter Emily, who was very young then, a baby. I had a baby in London, and said, put him up. And I said, look, you're employing us, to make albums and things. We need money to live, and someone to organise concerts. And so I've got all articles and that. When I write my book, I can put all this stuff in it. But it's like, so I went to play some music with David Allen and a bit of paper that I signed for Richard Branston and Simon Draper. I said, for an album untitled as yet. So I've written all this music. I've got an album worth called Untitled as Yet, and I had some help from David Allen for some lyrics too. That's why I went out there and had a lovely month. Sold my ticket and went to North Africa to meet a girlfriend. And then, I'd had a Dear John letter from my first partner in life, Pat, who was on the golf course, dressed in PVC, and had a Dear John letter. Didn't even know what a Dear John letter was, actually. But David Allen said, you've got a Dear John letter. Don't bother to come back because you found someone else to be with, right? Which was one of the road crew of Hatfield in the North. And she was going to marry him, and so I came back and squatted in Canterbury, and did music there in Canterbury, and things like that. And then I had a phone call. I mean, during this period of time when I left Hatfield in the North, I made a band, really only for one day, at Canterbury University, and I called it Sinclair and the South. I got my cousin Dave Sinclair to join it, and his guitar friend John Murphy, who lived in the same building as he did in Herne Bay, near Canterbury. And I invited, Dave Stewart gave me a call and said, hey, why don't you invite Bill Bruford? Ask Bill to come down if you need a drummer. I'd already gone to see Alan Holdsworth to see if he'd come and join us, but he was having a bad time at the time. He'd just done some music with Jack Bruce, and then his wife. He split up with his partnership, so he was very depressed. So when I went up there, he didn't really want to do much, which is a real great shame. I would have loved to play with Alan, right? Especially with Bill Bruford, because he'd been playing with Bill Bruford in Bill Bruford's band. Okay, so Dave Stewart called me and said, "Why don't you ask Bill to come down and play drums?" Which he did. Came down in his blue Mustang with white wall tires and his drum kit in the back. And there's a tape of it, which I think my cousin's got. And so we made it never come out as an album, which I think it will do now, because I think Dave Sinclair's son has got hold of it and they'd like to bring it out. So I hope they do. Bill Bruford, okay. And then I got a call from a Canterbury man who was a road manager for Camel.
Yeah.
And he said, we'd like you to come.
Face this way.
Okay. Oh, you've got to do this video. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I got a phone call from a guy called Laurie Small. Okay. He was the road manager for Camel. And he used to live in Canterbury. I didn't know him, but he's phoned up and said, Richard, Camel would like you to come and do some auditions because they want a bass player and singer for their next album, okay, which was called Rain Dances, okay. And so I had a very beautiful girlfriend then called Eve, because I'd split up from my family. They were in London. And so I was doing the rounds. Suddenly there was this queue of girlfriends, which was rather nice for me. And so I was invited down to Devon to their rehearsal place where they were rehearsing to do their album with Peter Bardens, Andy Ward, and Andy Latimer. They didn't want Doug, the original bass player, who was a great bass player. I don't know why they just didn't use me as a singer, really. But anyway, Andy Latimer wanted a more competent bass player able to play more difficult things, and he would the riff he wanted played was a track called Skylines, which in fact it's my title. I called it Skylines because it's like dum da doodle doodle dum on bass. It's dum da doodle doodle dum da doodle doodle dum da doodle doodle dum, which I could do easily on bass, and I could sing it more easily. But he played it on bass anyway. He'd already recorded that, okay, on the album. Yeah. So I got this job to go down there and try out with Camel with my beautiful girlfriend, which all their tongues hung out. And very nice, lovely music. I really enjoyed the songs, mainly because of Pete Bardens, actually. And Latimer is a fantastic blues rock soloist, and he also a very good composer with Pete Bardens. Fantastic. That combination, was very nice to be able to sing and play bass with. I was quite blessed with that. And it worked out. And they said, oh, yes, we'd like to use you as session player on Rain Dances, do the singing and play the bass. So we went to the studios and made this album. And after it, they got to take that music on the road. And so I was being paid on a retainer then. I think about 60 quid a week or something, which is rather good news, And then we did lots of, before we actually did the album, we did a whole bunch, weeks of rehearsal and writing the music. And then we went out, and then we went to the studio and spent many weeks in the studios organising Rain Dances, which was really good fun to do. Yeah. And then we spent another few weeks rehearsing to go out on a simple tour around England, I think 12-date tour. And then to take it round, into Europe. And we went to Europe then and did lots of concerts in Scandinavia. We went to Finland and Norway and Sweden and the rest of Europe. Very nice. Very well organised. Very, very professional organisation. Mainly because of Pete and Andy Latimer. Very good at programming events and making sure everything's, it's the only time I've been like a racehorse. You go on stage at 9 o'clock, you come off at 11. There's always 3 encores. You're playing to 1,000 people a night. It's an Arctic vehicle carrying all the gear. You've got 9 road crew. You've got us in a coach, a big motor coach with beds in it if you want. Everything's organised. So very good organisation. So it's really good fun. Trouble is, same announcements every night, same music every night, all in the same order. What I've been playing in a band called Hatfield in the North that played a different set every night. When we drove to each concert, we either played it backwards, forwards, wrote the bits out, and so every night it was only about us sort of like achieving new design of music, So it wasn't for the audience, it was, for the music and themselves. It's amazing. So you know, luckily I was a singer and able to, you know, I like looking at people when I sing, and I get a good vibe back, you know, especially from the people that dance and stuff. You know, you get the rhythm from them, and then it spreads out across an audience. It's really good fun, rather than looking at your instrument going, you know, you know, it's like, you know, which I can do looking at someone else rather than the band. You know, it's like,
That's right. That's right.
so after a while, after the second album, that ran out and joined Camel, which was the most amazing experience. Japan had been waiting. I mean, after the second album, which cost £76,000 to make, okay? And when was that? End of 77 into 78?
That's a lot of money,
Hatfield
right?
and North could have made 10 albums then.
That's right.
You know, it's like endless perfection, endless perfection, endless perfection. Solo after solo from Latimer, you know, while we were in Virgin Studios. It was costing a fortune, and you know, we ended up baking, you know, BTL, baking the lettuce sandwiches and drinks and waiting for the thing to come together. And then at the end, of course, Pete wasn't in the band because they didn't see eye to eye. You know, I managed to get a couple of strange bits of music on the album, which was, you know, and also a couple of riffs and things. So, you know, one's called Summer Lightnings. Summer nights here on the beauty.
We'll talk about that. The other album before Rain Dances is Breathless, also on the live record.
Second one, Breathless, yes.
That's a very good album as well. I mean,
I did too. I like all those albums actually, because I had such good fun singing those beautiful tunes. I mean, they're really, you know, some of Pete's lyrics, you know. Breathless is the most amazing song to sing. I mean, you think, you know, I mean, the people in coming from Hatfield, I think it must have made all the jazzers sort of, you know, I'm just the crooner, you know, in the jazz world.
And as you mentioned before, the summer lighting is like 6.5 minutes or so, right?
It's really nice. And the first
time it's a very nice piece, man. Very beautiful piece. Right?
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed to do that because it meant I could get the rest of the band to sing. You know, summer nights here on the shoreline, meet again. Was it? Yeah, another tune, a bit like it,
yeah.
What's it? Here's that beauty once again. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember our own tunes, but you know. And it's got the end, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote that as a guitar line in Caravan. Yeah. We were going to make an album in what did it come? No, it came before. Yeah, I'd already got that music, and then eventually it got recorded by Caravan, but the album never came together on that. Okay,
really?
I was reforming Caravan, I think in I can't remember which day it was, but we reformed Caravan and played that, and then eventually it came out on the Camel album as a rock version. Andy put on the beginning, gang, 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 you know, immediately, yeah, that's Andy Latimer, that is, you know.
Yeah. Andy Latimer, he's very structured and very
very tight on structures, and he's now got a very good bass player and singer.
Perfectionist.
He's got a very good band now. Very good. Yeah.
So that's what it takes many time to make the album, and with the same money that Camel put an album, other band could do 3 albums. You know, he's like Robert Fripp, Rocky Queen. So he's very perfectionist. You know.
Yeah. I find it a bit stagnant, actually. Sorry, I mean, I love his music and all the rest, but not after Peter. It doesn't come anywhere near the quality of those two working together. For me, that is, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of people. I mean, he's got such a great rock sound. He's a really strong out there, you know, happening. But I find it all a bit the same, you know, the same. It's when you have writers together on their first album is the most interesting time that they play together. And because everybody's identity is equal, you're all on the front line, right? And all listening to each other so closely, it can have more credibility for design and creativity, right? Rather than the same thing over and over again, which is why I like jazz players, only the best, right? My favorite drummer is obviously Jack DeJohnette and many others that play jazz really well, you know, really good. I mean, Jack DeJohnette is obviously one of my favorites, and many others like who've actually left the planet, like Tony Williams. Yeah. That was the first time I heard jazz, actually. It was on the back of a 1.75 per whatever it is, reel to reel, little tiny reels that Hugh Hopper had given to me with music of Chuck Berry and Mose Allison and things like that. And on the other side, it was in 1963 when Eric Dolphy, most amazing, for me, that's how I couldn't believe how I listened to that tape, Out to Lunch, for 2 years, listening to it, thinking, wow, counting the timings and just hearing how they played music together, right? Not all preordained, preset, dilly-dee, ba-da-ba. Okay, over melodies like boom, 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 ba-dee, boom, boom, and then Eric Dolphy, most amazing. He's like something from a zoo, right? And it's amazing. And for me, all the best, you know, I go outside my garden. I live quite a long way away from the town, right, and live in the countryside. I'm surrounded by nature, and so I only have a Eddie Roll stereo tape. I'm going to go outside next spring. It's a bit chill. I mean, when there's sunny days down here, you were saying how the weather was here in South Italy. It's usually great. It's been fantastic this year, right? The hottest summer I've ever known started in June. We had the most amazing, and before then we'd had lots of rain and beautiful spring. We had the most amazing harvest, you know, nuts and fruit. On my land, I've got cherry trees and nut trees, you know, hazels and walnuts and almonds and everything came, you know, herbs everywhere and diddly-dee. I just leave it to nature, my land, okay? Yes, I trim trees and things like that. But this year in Italy, down south, we had fantastic weather, very, very good weather. And we had lots of rain too, whereas most of Italy didn't get this amount of rain, right? Yep. A lot of people suffering in Europe now. They didn't get enough rain, okay? And now they're not getting enough gas to heat their homes. You know? It's like,
one thing or another.
There's a big change, everybody. Come on.
Yeah.
Get on the case. Learn how to look after yourselves.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the Caravan reunion after that in the 1990?
Yeah, we organised it. Dave Sinclair got a call. We 1990. Yeah, Central TV. Yeah, Bedrock series out at 2 o'clock in the morning. First of all, they made CDs. And it's all up on the YouTube anyway. Yeah, well worth watching. I played that program twice with Hatfield in the North and with Caravan, and was asked to go back to the studio. I had the most amazing time because it was me that was asked to go back to try and, you know, complete the mixes where things had not worked and all that stuff, you know. So yeah, to a lot of people, right? It means they are communicating the music for real to the people, especially the people that are working there. Most amazing team I've ever worked with. Fantastic. Very good programs. Well worth a listen. If you don't know about the Canterbury scene, you can see Caravan reform, you know, how our characters have changed from we were asked to make the original band, you know. Fantastic. You know, I had to work at that to get the same spirit back, you know.
Yeah. I was listening to before we go into Caravan again, Peter Barden. He is amazing guy. I mean,
he was a very fine. He's the only pop star, real one that I ever met in my life.
really?
A real pop. He came from the band. He had his own band running before. Forget what it was called. Album with lots of half-naked ladies on it. Rather nice album. Much more into dance then. But then he worked with Van Morrison in Them. Gloria, you know, G-R-I-L-A, you know,
Yeah.
Gloria, which became a hit. And then his friends were Fleetwood Mac, Eric Burden. They all came to his wedding, right? I met all these people. It's like, I mean, they all became really heavyweight, you know, artists, didn't they? You know, they're called stars, aren't they? Pop rock stars, yeah. Pete was the only pop rock star that I ever got to know well, you know. I mean, I know a lot of other famous people like Andy Summers and, you know, and all those people. Early days, Andy used to play a bit with Soft Machine. I remember playing with him. With Caravan, he came, I think we played Summertime at one of the clubs outside Canterbury called Bridge Country Club. And he was a fine guitarist. He always has been. Fantastic guitarist. Very, very good classical, very, very good jazz.
Are you in touch with those people? They visit you? You visit them? Or not?
I went to visit Andy Summers because he only half knew me because of that meeting in Canterbury. Okay, so I gave him a call, and it was just before Christmas when I was doing a solo tours around the United States. You know, it was one of the tours. I went to California, and one of the guys said, "Why don't you get in touch with Andy? Then he lives down in Little Venice. He's got a block there, you know." Geodesic dome, he's got all his guitars and studio there. It looks up towards, you can see, if you go in the geodesic dome, you can see up to, you know, the Hollywood Hills, the big sign, and all that, you know. So I went down there in this rather strange car and knocked on his back door at a certain time, you know, this huge block. Opened the door, and of course, you know, I look like that now, you know, rather than Barbie boy when I was in Caravan. And he just fell over backwards laughing. He said, "Oh, it's okay. Time takes its toll, you know." So I spent a day with him there with my one guitar, which he was very interested in, as his roadman, I forget his name now. Oh, is it Henry or something? He had 200 guitars he was putting away for Christmas. All amazing guitars, you know, and 2 grand pianos in this place. So I had a very nice time with Andy. But that's the last time I saw him. But, you know, yeah, I really liked it. I mean, I like his style. He was masterful in the Police, wasn't he? Brilliant.
Unbelievable, yeah. That band, man, it's amazing. The whole band.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, the great band. At this point, you end up forming your own group, Caravan of Dreams.
Caravan of Dreams, I started, right after I was asked by a company in England called HTD Records. And of course I invited Andy to be in my band, and my cousin Dave Sinclair, and Jimmy Hastings, and one of the crew members of Hatfield and the North played bass very well, a guy called Rick Biddulph. And I made this band called Caravan of Dreams, which, after taking Caravan to Italy for the first time in their lives, okay, I got to know the president of the concert we were doing. It's called Rock in Umbria. It's one of the biggest rock concerts here in Italy, and also Jazz in Umbria. I think he was the president of that. And when I got invited back with Caravan of Dreams, a man that was alive then, Sergio, which was his main manager for all the rock concerts and things like that, he said, "Look, you must come and stay with the president in his 800-year-old castle," which my wife and I did, Heather, and we went to stay in this 800-year, just outside Perugia, and sort of, you know, landed good, so to speak. You know, it's like I was taken around parts of Umbria which I never would have seen. Fantastic place. It's a landlocked province in Italy, and it's got some wonderful historic buildings and places where they do the jazz. I got to go and see the. I mean, I did a nice concert there. This is why I live here in Italy now, because lots of people came from the south of Italy. They came all over, about 800 people to see Caravan, and then of course the same number came to see me when I did Caravan of Dreams, and I'd only ever seen Italy on postage stamps when I used to have this collection of these most amazing stamps with these beautiful pictures of Italy with those, you know, upright trees, whatever they call them, and wonderful castles and wonderful stamps when it was lira, you know, so many thousand lira. I remember in my stamp collection. So when I came here for real, and Caravan did in 1990 and did that show, I had the most amazing experience. It was like a wonderful place to be. What a respectful place it is, you know, for each other, and the type of food that they really demand, you know, what they grow. I mean, where I live down south now, it's because I had a phone call from one of those people that came up from South Italy to see Caravan, and then particularly to see me, because I was a member of Hatfield in the North and Camel and all that. And they followed all those bands as boys, as students, you know, usually drummers or whatever. And he was the man that lived in one of the towns close to me called Fasano. And they have the Kennedy Theatre there, where they have Fasano jazz every year. And so, first of all, I was doing Caravan of Dreams for my second visit in '92, and I was going around North Italy with my band. I don't think it didn't have Jimmy in then. It had Dave Sinclair and Rick Bedoff from the, you know, Red Crew, Hatfield, and all playing bass, me on guitar, and Andy Ward on drums. And we went round, and I was going to make a concert for a recording for a company called Mellow Records, and we did that in Genoa. The gig before that was in Venice, where you weren't supposed to play ball, or nothing drives in Venice. And of course, Andy Ward played football and missed the ball with his left foot and kicked a drain pipe and broke his big toe the day before we were going to do some recording of this album, right? Which was amazing. We recorded it and all the rest of it after 4 other prog bands had played. It's ridiculous, you know. Didn't know that was going to happen. This guy, Mauro Moroni, total criminal. Sorry, he's just a total criminal, really is. And so we made this album, and yeah, Andy with a broken foot, you know, broken toe, so his hi-hat wasn't working too well, which was rather good, actually. He sort of emptied it out a bit. It's sort of great recording. It's for sale now, you know, you can buy it from me or buy it from a Japanese company or buy it from Amazon. It's called An Evening of Magic, Richard Sinclair's Caravan of Dreams. And the question was then, what happened with Caravan of Dreams in Italy? Well, I was invited, this guy called Domenico De Mola, who was the main managing director of the jazz music in Fasano in the Kennedy Theatre, Fasano Jazz, said, Richard, come down. We want you to come down. We know you finished and got rid of the band. The band's back to England. You're there with your wife. You're having a holiday now for a few days in northern Italy. Come to Fasano. I said, that's an awful long way to go. I mean, is it for a concert and money? He said, in the Italian way, he said, Richard, don't worry about the money. Just come. Okay. And what he meant was, there is no money. Just come and we leave. And of course, we drove all the way down through Italy, because I had a brand new Toyota Space Cruiser then, which is like a bed on wheels, only with a cool box in it. And so my wife and I, we stopped off and went up mountains and all the way down the west side of Italy, eventually went up and looked inside Vesuvius, and then came across to Fasano and met these guys on Selvaletri Beach at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and there they were. We were taken, I thought we were just going to stay in a holiday home on the beach. No, they took me to a masseria, a very ancient building, you know, with its own farmland, with 2,000-year-old olive trees, you know, and a beautiful place. And they captured us for 2 months. And I wasn't allowed to. I met all these musicians that were fans of mine, you know, some of them very famous in Italy now. This was in '92, okay? We had a singer from one of the very famous bands in Italy is called Negramaro. And this man was a total fan of mine then. He lived in a town called Lecce. And I remember meeting, and they bought all this equipment where I was staying. And we played music. I did a party there. I got to see this whole area. And the place I chose to live then, which I didn't get to till 2006, this was like 92. And I knew where I wanted to live, but I'd moved in with my partner in life and in the old mayor's house in Canterbury, where we rehearsed Caravan, in fact, when we persuaded Pye to join and come and do the old band for the TV show. Because he wasn't playing music then. Caravan was off the road then. And Jeffrey Risson was in the band, but he decided he didn't want to join us, which I thought was really sad, really. You know, I don't know why he didn't want to do that. Jimmy did, and we did the TV show. And that's why I live in Italy, really, because I had such a nice time with Caravan then. And then, you know, I came back with my own band, which was like great, even better for me, because I really was able to stay with the president of the Rocking Umbria, and I got to meet all these. I met a millionairess there that had this most amazing. It was called Villa Cardinale. I mean, it's an amazing building, 500-year-old fresco, most incredible, with its own stables, its own secret garden that was completely overgrown. Okay. My wife and I got invited to stay in the gatehouse there. It's a magnificent place, you know, which we did for a little bit. And I was asked to then, after being filmed for Caravan of Dreams at the concert and all that, I mean, Perugia is the most amazing town. It's 3 towns on its shot. There's the main town, then there's an underneath town, and then another one underneath it. It's the most incredible place to visit. All the different religions are inside the wall. So on Saturday and Sunday, it's the most amazing din of all these different religions kicking off. You know, it's not bells, it's so, all the religions inside. So I got to, you know, take part in it in a big way, really. It's very nice for me. Blessed again, you know. Blessed again, sing a few songs, and everybody likes what you do, so you get invited to all the best restaurants and all the, you know, going around Perugia. It's amazing to get to the top. It goes around like this. Of course, in the president's car or a millionaire's car, you just go zoop, straight to the top. You know, it's very much like that in Italy. It's who you know. Okay.
Really.
Very much so. Very, very much so.
Yeah. In 2000. In 2000, you rejoined again, reformed band Hatfield and the North.
That was because I had a band then called RSVP, and I was playing in Portugal. I'd taken the band Andy Ward, who hadn't played for 2 years. I said, come and play with the people that you really would like to play with. That was Theo Travis was in my band, Alex Maguire, who was in Pip Parr's band, Bash, but I only knew Alex then as that. And Phil Miller, who had his own band called In Cahoots, and they were not playing at the time. And so I invited them all to go down as a 5-piece band to play in Gouveia, up a mountain in Portugal, which I have a couple of DVDs of, which I'm going to bring out, actually. But while I was there, and we played a nice concert and had fun, the man from Fasano, who'd invited me down in 92. This is 2000 and when was it? 2000 and it was early in 2000 that I had RSVP. Well, in the 90s maybe even. I can't remember. He said no, it was in 2005 when I was playing in Gouveia, and Domenico De Mola phoned me up and said, Richard, I'd really like your band to come and play in Fasano Jazz. Okay. I said, yeah, great, good. I said, but I'm going to need a drummer because Andy Ward didn't really do drumming anymore, really. He had a bad time at the concert, you know. That was the last concert he did, you know. I'd actually got him out after he hadn't been playing for 2 years. He had a problem, you know, mentally to go on stage and all that. He'd got the same, you know, this paranoia of having to drink too much, you know, whatever, to get the confidence to go on stage. And so he had to stop playing that. And, you know, medically treated for a depression, almost like a depression, really. But anyway, dear old Andy is still on the planet. And so, and Domenico De Mola said to me, yes, can you ask Pip Pyle, who wasn't playing with Phil Miller for some time then. He had played in Cahoots, but to get those two boys back together is like, oh, it's a good chance to do this. I said, yeah, I'll phone him up straight away. And Pip said, well, yes, I'd like to do it. So then when I spoke to, my band was called RSVP, so I thought my band was going to play there. So no, he said, I want you to call it Hatfield and the North. So really, Domenico De Mola started Hatfield and the North again. Of course, they all said yes, because they weren't working, and it meant that they could earn money and do some concerts around Europe as well, not just in Fasano Jazz. At the time, actually, Pip Pyle had a terrible situation with his back, where he'd had an operation on it, and he could only sit on his drum stool for 30 minutes before he had to stop. And so we took two drummers down. The drummer from In Cahoots is called Mark Fletcher. He's a London session player, a very good, one of the top session players in London. He played in Phil Miller's band In Cahoots, and he came down too. So it was like a six-piece band on stage. Theo on sax, you know, sax and flute, Theo Travis, Pip Pyle on drums, Mark Fletcher on drums, Phil Miller on guitar, and Alex Maguire, who then was part of my band, but then it was called Hatfield, became the keyboard player for Hatfield and the North, okay? Yeah. And we did a nice concert. In fact, I'm just going to pick up the tapes of that and bring it out as hopefully a DVD, right? I've got all these things to do now. I've just recently been in touch with Domenico De Mola, who's got lots of tapes of me playing at Fasano Jazz, you know, with different bands. Richard Sinclair's birthday band, Jimmy Hastings, and another Canterbury musician called Dave Rees-Williams, very good keyboard player from Canterbury, classical jazz. You know. So yeah, I mean, you know, I've been pretty blessed by the people I'm able to play with that actually want to play my music. So yes, David and I managed to get Pye to reform the original Caravan in 1990. Right. And then Hatfield did it, but without Dave Stewart. Didn't want to do it. And so Pip Pyle got his girlfriend then, Sophia Domazy, to come and play, and Phil Miller. And we made a Hatfield concert, which is on the Bedrock series of Central TV, which is CD and DVDs and digitally up on the, you know, I think you can get it from everywhere. Nice things to listen to. Actually, listening back to it now, they're really good programs. I mean, I took part with both those programs in the 64-track studio afterwards, because I had to go and repair a singing part on one of my tunes called Halfway Between Heaven and Earth. And really, it's visually the most interesting time, because my bass amp packed up on the solo just before the whole song. And my bass sound was coming out of Pip Pyle's monitor up on the rostrum, okay? And he also had his announcement mic there. I thought, okay, I've got to do something about this. I've got to be near my bass. I've got to sing. I'm just going to go up and go behind Pip. Everybody wondered what I was doing. And if you look at the video very carefully, you see two cameras collide in each other nearly, you know. There's a camera. They had to, this amazing team. They got it sorted straight away. But I had to go back to the studio after I'd done the Caravan one to go back and help with the mixing of it, you know, the presentation. Well, it's a visual thing. And so I had to go back and sort a bit of singing out, which is the most fantastic thing to do when you work in a 64-track studio that's all automated, you know. It's just an amazing thing to do because I can do it really quick. I can sing exactly what I've sung, over. Yeah. So people can't even tell that I've sung it. I used to do that in analog studios, no problem at all. So, well, now can you do it? I said, just done it, so tight that it hardly phased,
By the way, what happened? You mentioned last time, what happened to your record collection? You still have it, the vinyl? Or no?
I've got for sale. I've got my original pressing that I gave to my mum of Caravan of Dreams, Caravan, album, which is in mono. Okay, it's one of the really rare ones, and I'd like to sell it to the highest bid because I'm really short of money. I live off emergency money at the moment here in Italy. Okay, I'm not doing that many concerts. I get a little bit of money to do session work, but it's mainly, I get 560 euros per month because I'm out of work and I've signed on, my tax code is here and all the rest of it. So apparently I'm owed a pension. And because I'm not ready to get the pension, because there's all this thing about Brexit and God knows what else, I'm allowed emergency money, I think up till January. And so I live on a very small amount of money. And only just this year have I done 2 concerts, which meant I could buy this iPhone, okay? I mean, yes, Caravan had just brought out a box set, and I did get a couple of grand to sign photographs, okay? And now I get a little bit of money from Pye's wife, Kathy, who organised the royalties for actually the royalty for the visual and the albums that I'm on, right? Okay, which is only a small amount of money, but it's a help. It's better than a kick up the arse. And I don't get any money. I mean, really? Hatfield in the North has been going by Esoteric Records, Mark Powell. It's like all the albums that came out with Caravan. No one said hello. Not even the guy that Stephen Wilson or something. He does sing Land of Grey and Pink. He's never said hello to me ever. This is from Porcupine Tree. I mean, I just don't get. I think they're either nervous of me. So I have no idea. I don't get contacted or royalties of any of that. Yeah. And they've remixed it and done it digital, which for me is absolutely horrendous. And they've picked my voice out from one of the albums. I mean, they re-release it every year, right? And it's just like someone else takes control of the mixing and God knows whether they make it digital. It completely destroys any magic,
Why don't you contact Stephen Wilson management?
Why don't I have no idea where he is or what he is. I think he works with Pye. I think he works with. I mean, why don't I? Well, why doesn't he contact me? Why would I want to contact him anyway?
Yeah, well, right for.
Royalty. I don't think he's going to employ me. I certainly can't afford to employ him. I think he sings okay. Well, I'd rather listen to Nat King Cole though. I'm a choir boy, me. Come on. I just about get to hear. I mean, my favourite singer, and it wasn't until the Live Aid happens was Freddie Mercury. Amazing voice, right?
Wow,
the best for me. It's just completely sorted. I really like their songs and the whole, especially when you hear them all going radio. It's like everybody, and the way he walked on stage there. I mean, before then, I didn't used to listen to Queen or anybody. I only ever listened to the people I work with. Okay,
that's
people
right.
say, "Well, don't you know?" I never listened to Genesis, and I was asked to do a tribute track on Supper's Ready, an album that was organised from America. Yeah. And I don't know any Genesis music. I mean, everybody else says, "Oh, no," because I don't listen to it, right? I mean, I listen to the people I'm working with or myself. I don't have time. I listen to jazz music. I listen to John McLaughlin, John Scofield, Pat Metheny, Eberhard Weber, all these other great bass players. There's hundreds of fantastic bass players, not just Jaco Pastorius, who also his best playing for me was with Joni Mitchell, Lyle Mays and, Michael Brecker and Pat Metheny and Don Elias. I mean, that's my favourite band. 1974, check it out. Joni Mitchell. I mean, show me a band that plays as well as that, and a bass player that can play with the singer as well as that. I don't know one. Right? Fantastic. Jacko playing with Joni Mitchell. Oh, still get goosebumps even talking about that. He's got such an amazing timing and touch and sound, tuning second to none. And the actual, inventive, master, and then he blew up, decided he really was the number one. Started waking up everybody in the early hours of the morning, all the great people. It's an amazing video of that, all about Jacko's life. It's worth check it out. If you're a bass player and haven't looked at that, check it out. Ugh. But there's hundreds of great bass players. I'm not so keen on the technical ones. Okay, I like the ones that sing. You can hear they're singing that, and you I mean, I can play that, but they do it as the true meaning of the Pythagoras deal of music, which we're all into. They use it for real. I mean, that's the Pythagoras' example is the nearest to the most magic harmonic thing you'll hear just walking out in the countryside. That's in harmony. The planet is in harmony with itself. It's only human beings that struggle. Okay.
Do you have any comments on your participation in the documentary Romantic Warriors? Canterbury
they phoned me up and I did some stuff and did a comment on it. I mean, they did a good job, blah blah blah, DDD. I mean, for me, that isn't the Canterbury scene. The Canterbury scene is my dad, my granddad, and all the other musicians that were real Canterbury musicians. As Robert said, it's quite a joke from him. It's great. He said, well, look, we're just a bunch of tourists, which is what Canterbury is about, really. I mean, yes, how does it relate? Why does this Canterbury thing have a thing like the Beatles is the Liverpool sound, Canterbury scene is Soft Machine, Gong, Caravan, and everybody else that we played with, especially me, Kevin Ayres, Robert Wyatt, David Allen, they're all great songwriters, and they write with that scale, These are the notes they use. There's only 12. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then you've got the octave, okay? So you've not got that many, you just got octaves of those notes, okay? And if you don't practice and sing them, then what the bloody hell are you doing? You're reading off something that, paper doesn't send sound to you. It's just mathematics, okay? So lots of people play that by mathematics. It's you can hear the people that are singing what they play. Jeff Beck, there's one for you.
What are you working nowadays, Richard?
What am I working on now?
Yeah.
Other people's music still. I've got a lot. I'm working on making new albums. I'm helping other people that have got a little bit of fame to make their music, making sure they can get it placed in record companies. Many record companies saying, hey, we'd like some of your past history. All my music in the 90s, I played with many bands, musicians from the Canterbury scene, from Soft Machine or Gong or my own band or Caravan or Camel, or I had drummers and musicians from all those bands. And I made 2 bands in the 90s, one called Caravan of Dreams, Richard Sinclair's Caravan of Dreams, and one called RSVP. Respondez-vous s'il vous plaît. And they got some really great musicians on RSVP. You've got Tony Coe, who's a Canterbury musician, clarinet player, second to none, right? He's an old man now, and I'm not sure he's still playing. Jimmy, I think, is still playing, but they're much older than me, those guys, right? But they always wanted to play my music, which is lovely for me. I'm blessed, okay? My father used to play with Tony Coe's father in Canterbury, so I'm very linked to that side of the Canterbury scene, okay? Yes, I suppose I'm the one that's cross-referenced most of the people into Canterbury scene. In 1990, my wife was going on to saying, look, you're part of this Canterbury scene. And of course, they'd already been chosen that by the media system, okay? The magazine writers. First one, Al Clark, he came down to Canterbury in 1960, 8 or 9, and Soft Machine were in Canterbury then. And so it was written about that Soft Machine were in Canterbury. Of course they were. They were boys together at school and God knows what else. And so that's the Canterbury scene, and it's spread out. And it's gone right the way around the world now, it's the Canterbury scene. Every band I've played in gets sort of like linked partially into the Canterbury scene. The only thing I think that links us all is this 12-note, are different from each other. Harmony would be better if it was 4/3/2, but it's not. It's 4/40, which means it's a bit more aggressive, apparently. Chosen just after the Second World War, so we'd keep fighting each other. Seems to be proved right, doesn't it? We're still fighting each other about what music we like, and where we want to play it, and how we want to play it, and what volume we want to play it in, how many chords we want to play, and everybody wants soul or bossa nova or God knows what else the media have decided to call it. Me, I have fun with all. I don't have a problem with it,
Where our listeners can buy your music, Richard?
Well, you'll eventually be able to buy it from me. There's a Japanese company called June Division in Japan. Yeah. I think that's up everywhere. You can get it for free on YouTube. Just listen to it. Richard Sinclair. Go for Richard Sinclair, Caravan of Dreams. That's all up there. There's everything totally. Or if you want to buy it directly from me, you can write to me at Richard Stephen Sinclair. At gmail.com, or you can join me on Facebook. 9,000 people have done it, and so I think they're waiting. Everybody's waiting for the solo album. Well, there's quite a few on the way. I've got to put there's a company called Ultravibe in Japan that would like, I think, as many as 30 live albums. I've got DVDs of it, I've got videos of it, I've got sound, I've got reel-to-reel of it, I've got LED, most of it from audience point of view, or not many, some of them are from the desk, some of the prog concerts I did with Hatfield in the North, I've got those too, they can come out.
Where you have
there's
it?
a lot of albums, so I need
where you have it? In that location?
Sorry?
Where you have those tapes? Down there where you live?
All here. There's big piles of them all over the place here. Wow. My wife's gone to live in England because of it. I think she's escaped. After COVID, she got pretty chewed off with it here because we're in the countryside, and I didn't have transport to get in and out, and she didn't really want to go after the terrible. She broke her arm very badly and got treated very badly here in Martina Franca in the hospital during the COVID thing. So I couldn't be with her, to help her. It's awful. And she's back in England now, with her brother. She looks after a brother who's tetraplegic, Melvin Kinnear, and he lives in London and has been tetraplegic for the whole of his life since the age of 16. So he's now 60 plus years old. And Heather was a state registered nurse for 11 years. She's gone there to look after him. Yeah. He needs care staff every day. He's got 2 other care staff. And so she'll be there till next spring. So I've got to find someone and get an internet system up here so we can communicate to the rest of the planet and also use computers here. Someone to come and work with me, so I'm going to probably advertise that on Facebook, say, hey, anybody want to come and make some albums and things, make some money in the future from the advance monies that this albums will get. There's people local here that are saying, oh yes, well, we can do this, but of course everybody's got different day jobs and stuff. I can hear, I go to studios and say what I want to hear, where to edit and all the rest of it, but I'm not hands-on, Sure. I can't even use this iPhone properly, as you know. So it's like, and I love to work with everybody. If anybody wants to come and be on touch with me, I'm in touch with people in Chile, as I told you, musicians and radio presenters, and I think they're all amazed how I am because this is me. I'm only a choir boy from Canterbury that's been blessed. But I've been able to play with all these people now that are,
Well,
I'm blessed because I'm sort of a little bit famous with all those people, right?
yeah,
And all
well,
those bands.
I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed that I'm talking to you, Richard. And
I'm blessed to talk to you too, right? Because I get my inspirations when people come up and say, "Oh, they really like those tunes. They really like the singing, things like that." I mean, that's why I do it, because I like to be able to, you know. I mean, that's what entertainment's about. Okay, you know, if I studied a bit more, I could read music and just get it quick. But I prefer to learn it by ear and sing stuff that, you know, people want to enjoy, and you don't know they're enjoying it until people come up and say, "Look, you affected my life at a certain time," and da-da-da, dee-dee-dee, and we felt the same way. Well, I mean, it's only emotions, you know. A girlfriend loves you, and you say, "Well, this isn't the right time. I've already got a wife, and okay, we're split up, and diddly-dee," but and you write a thing like it didn't matter anyway, diddle-oo. We'll meet again some other day, Bono. Until then, goodbye, you'll be in my dreams. And so that affected quite a lot. It was like singing a tune like Tell Me in Camel. I get a lot of requests for that. So tell me everything, you know, don't be afraid to give yourself away. I mean, the lyrics are just, and the playing by Pete and Andy is just fantastic on that. Pete Barnes, great songwriter. And so I was blessed to go and join Camel and sing all those beautiful tunes, you know, because it introduces that music through the sound of me. And there's quite a few people say yes, you know. There's quite a few people go thumbs down to my singing in Wilde Flowers. Why ever did you sing like that? Because I'm a choir boy, right? I'm a choir boy still now. I'm not really a rock singer. So I'm thinking, you know, the more I talk, the more voice goes like that, you know. I mean, when in London, when Hatfield and the North formed, their soulmate and friend for life since birth, Phil Miller and Pip Pye, was Angela Favor. Right? He was, first of all, the sound engineer and minder for Soft Machine, and then Jeff Beck, okay, and then a few other bands and stuff. And then he was Robert Plant's minder and sound engineer for the whole of the band, right? And so, you know, we live in with this guy. And so all these stories. And Hatfield were like gladiators too on the road. I mean, I was like a choir boy with three, you know, two anyway, gladiators, you know, Piff and Phil. They're really on the case for the music. And if the audience don't like it, well, tough luck, you know. It's like, so it's quite a hard job for me to sort of, you know, keep that spirit of entertainment going when it's quite difficult music to play with Hatfield. Yeah. And then when Robert Plant's son died, unfortunately, in America, he's 5 years old, Robert, Led Zeppelin came off the road for a year. And so Benj was back in the apartment where we all lived together. That was Pip and me and my wife, Pip's wife, and Benj in the front room, a big apartment in London and so on South Circular in London. We asked Benj to be, you know, he was always there for a road crew and a sound engineer and a minder for us, right? But at the same sort of level as Led Zeppelin. So it was quite an amazing experience with Benj, you know. I remember going to a restaurant and one of the first concerts we played in France, after driving all the way down through France to Bordeaux. The first concert was in Bordeaux the next day, and we went out for a meal on the day of the concert, Benj and I. And the guy that took us half a kilometre away, whatever it was, to the restaurant, disappeared because Benj was like making him go fast. And this Dojo said, "Come on, we got only an hour to eat food, and then we got to be back." And of course, the guy gave up on us and left us at the restaurant. So, you know, we had a nice meal, you know, and then we got to walk back. No chance for Benj. Even before, as we walked out the restaurant, he just grabbed hold of me and stuck me on his shoulders, right? And ran with me holding my crown jewels carefully. He ran all the way to the concert, down through the audience, You know, I said, mate, it's like half a kilometre. It's quite a way, you know, 3 or 4, 5 minutes of running with me on his shoulders, and then swung me around and put me in front of the mic and went, sing! And then went back and the show started, right? It's great. Really good sound engineer. The best, right? The best. And the best minder for a concert.
Yeah. And I know, Richard, it's getting late for you, so it was very nice talking to you, Richard Steven Sinclair.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. Sorry if I talked too much.
I think I'm going. You have so many stories to tell, so I think I want to call you.
Too many, Sunday. Yeah.
Every Sunday at 2 o'clock, I will call you.
You have to do it. Yeah. Get people to contact me too. That would be nice. You know, email or Facebook. Join me on Facebook. There's 2 sites. One's Italian. There's one sitting with. They're both pictures of me.
Yeah.
The earlier one is early days, and that's the Italian one. But right to Richard Sinclair with I'm sitting there with a big jazz guitar.
Okay.
D'Angelico, and it's a big. And I've got a summer hat which has got Italy written on it. Right. Just get them to join me on Facebook, because I love to do this to everybody on Messenger. Okay.
You bet.
It's the reason why I'm on Facebook. I like to hear their news, okay?
That's right.
Like I like to know about you. And I find having real news is the best way to go on planet Earth. I don't believe anything on the radio or the TV. I mean, yes, it's partially true, but it's not how people are, are in those countries, really.
Right, Richard,
so I really love to hear, especially from musicians.
That's right.
They want a singer and a bass player. I'm here, right?
It was very nice talking to you, Richard, man.
Nice to talk to you too. Good luck with all that.
And I will call you next Sunday. We'll talk.
You call me next Sunday on Messenger any day of the week. I'd love to talk to you. I'll talk about Chile.
Well, we'll talk about Chile.
I've got a few people down there too, and a few other radio presenters in America. There's some really fine people like yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Thank you.